Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. So we're going to try and do something a little bit different today. I've got a couple of fairly new trail riders joining us. Well, one newer than the other, but they've both got some experience now. The idea is we're going to create a podcast that is the answer to every single question a beginner trail rider might ask. That's the plan. Let's see how it goes. So welcome, Alex, to the first time to the pod. It's very good to have you. We'll get you to tell people why you're on the podcast in a minute. And Will, welcome back. This is your third time, I believe. You're like an expert now. But yeah, so as I said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create sort of a beginner's guide to trail riding. So Will and Alex, whilst not completely new, have kind of gone through fairly recently the process of starting trail riding. I've been doing it for 16 years or something like that, so I can't remember how I started trail riding, but I thought it'd be good for you guys to we've got some topics to discuss, and then also just to fire out any questions really that you may have that you think might be useful to people. So let's start off with some quick introductions. Alex, do you want to tell us who you are, what you do trail riding wise?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alex. I started trail riding about 2 years ago. I've been riding kind of road bikes. Started doing a little bit of off-road when I was a kid. Always had bikes. Most of them had been road bikes, but I had got to a point where I was looking for kind of a hobby as well as something that I could use kind of as a weekend blast. And there were lots of things that I was potentially looking at. I live quite close to a track that they use in British Superbikes and things like that. So there was the option of looking at potentially like a track bike or something. But I really wanted to find something that I could both enjoy on the weekends and meet people, as well as something to improve kind of my riding capabilities as well. So I kind of introduced myself to Clive through listening to the podcast and trying to learn a good place to start. And I've been riding for 2 years, really enjoy it, and very grateful and fortunate to have been invited on the podcast to talk about my experiences.
I will see. We might put you off in the next hour or so. You never know. Thanks for that. You're very welcome, and thanks for those emails you sent me encouraging me to do some bloody podcasts, because I've been sitting on my hands for the last year or so, I think, since we did the last one. And you were on the last one, Will. I know you've kind of done some intros before, but did you want to give us a quick potted history of your journey to trail riding?
The magical journey.
Was it magical?
Yeah, so magical. I was on road bikes, as everybody is when they first start out. And then I read Jupiter's Travels. This important point, I read Jupiter's Travels before The Long Way Round, but I found that massively inspiring. I was reading that all at the same time as kind of Unbearable Lightness of Being and all that sort of, philosophical nonsense crap when I was about 19 or so. And went out to go and buy a Triumph, but the Triumph dealership also sold BMWs. And if you ride a Triumph from whenever it was, 2004, and then you ride a GS back to back, you're just going to get GS because they were better bikes. So I had my GS. I went down to Wales on it, met some other trail riding people, and took the GS sort of off-road-ish around Waters Arena in a closed circuit. And then I was hooked. Met loads of people around there. They told me to go and see Martin at Talk Racing, and he said, change this, change that, get yourself some tires. There's a byway 100 meters that way. Off you go. Join the TRF. And then sort of did more and more on the GS until it started breaking.
So you've actually done quite a bit of trail riding on your GS, haven't you?
Yeah, probably the most trail riding on the GS. Yeah, this is the thing. I think it's a wonderful bike, amazing at slow speed maneuvering. You can get it over almost anything, but you will break pieces while you're doing it. And that's the point. I think this point, when people kept saying to me, it's a stupid bike, get a smaller bike, light is right. And you think, well, you're being kind of pious as you're telling me that. And that always put me off. Then you try a smaller bike and you think, hang on, I'm actually having more fun now. And I don't really mind an hour on the road at slightly less discomfort. It's not crazy. And then I started breaking that one as well. So then I got a slightly smaller one. And this one's held together so far.
This is the 690 you're on now. So you went from the 1200 to the KTM 890.
It was 790, but
790,
basically the same bike.
Same bike. And then you come down now to a 690.
Yeah.
That's a logical next step, isn't there?
I don't know if there is. Because Greg, Rupert and I did the bike test, the AJP PR7 versus the KTM 690 versus the Husqvarna 450 four-stroke. And in the process of that, Rupert and I were switching. He's got 450 and I got 690. And actually, not a huge difference between them. Not a huge difference.
Yeah, to be honest, that's my experience too. I've ridden a 690 in Morocco. And I think there was only one day I got a bit fed up with it. We were coming down these terrifying, twisty, very tight, massive drop-off mountain passes. And it was a really steep hairpin after really steep hairpin. And I'm just thinking, this is too heavy. I'm just going to see if somebody wants to swap. Because it was like, if I don't concentrate, I'm going to fall off and die. Which is why I went to a lighter bike on that one. But I think the interesting thing for this podcast is there's a lot of people, like Alex, are currently riding road bikes. And they're seeing us, appearing from gates with massive smiles on our faces, covered in mud, obviously having far more fun than they are. And they think, I want to do that. Now, I've got this monster sports bike. It's 1,000cc. It's a inline 4. It's 180 brake horsepower, and I can do 200 miles an hour. I'm going to get the biggest, baddest motherfucker of a dirt bike and go and do what they're doing. So what I'm seeing a lot of is people buying GSs because I can ride a 1,000cc sports bike. I can ride one of those. I can get a big Triumph and take that off road. And they're not even putting knobbly tyres on. The craziest thing I ever saw at a rally once was a guy who was on a GS 1200. He had kind of 50-50 tyres on. He had his buff on. He had his full Heine Gurecki waterproof suit on, and he fell off before he got to the start line. I mean, fair play to him. He actually finished, he did a lap on it, which was, more than anybody thought he would do. So I guess those are the kinds of people I'm kind of really keen to steer in the right direction of getting something that is, and I think you said the key thing, Will, you can trail ride on anything at all, but you're probably going to have more fun on a smaller bike.
See, it's funny, Clive, you say that about like having a big bike and also like driving along and seeing people kind of emerge from a gate, because that was me. So I was driving along with my family. We were driving through the woods because I was taking my family and we're going for a walk. And I think my wife and I are actually talking about like what's the option. And as we were driving, I just saw these front wheels and there was lots of them. And I just thought, oh, green laning. I've always read about green laning. Green laning sounds great. I've always wanted a green lane bike. And it was like, well, why don't you just do that? And suddenly I was like, well, because I've got, and actually, believe it or not, I actually had a Triumph. I had a Triumph Tiger 800 in the garage, which I've seen amazing videos of people doing fantastic riding, off-road riding on, and they're incredibly capable bikes. But I guess when I actually came to think about it, it was, will my enjoyment be stifled by the fact that I'm a relatively inexperienced off-road, or I'm completely inexperienced off-road? I would just be terrified of dropping the thing and going like, that's a couple of £100, that's a couple of £100. And I kind of think, okay, well, I could still make the best of what I've got. So when I priced up knobbly tires and I priced up crash bars and I priced up all the bits I needed, at the time, that was quite a long way towards a slightly second-hand dirt bike. And so that was my experience. I was kind of like, look at how much fun that is. And also it's people who are like-minded, enjoying something together. And stopping every now and again to discuss, oh, how did you get on with that bit? You know, and I had all these romanticized views about what riding in a group would be, because I always really enjoyed riding on the road with friends. And actually, like, that perception came true when I started riding. I rode with friends. People struggled in different places, or I mean, because I ended up buying quite a cheap first bike, you know, it didn't start, so everyone kind of like mucked in and the seat was off, and that, you know, you were doing all the bits and pieces, which that it was that sense of community that I was really really interested in. So yeah, like, I was one of those people who saw those bikes, and also in a position where, do I just turn my 800 into an off-roader? But I knew I probably didn't have the experience or the skill to take it to its full capability, and I thought I'd probably do myself an injury by lying underneath it, and probably look a bit silly when I fall off it pretty quickly after I got on the first set of trails.
Yeah, I do think it depends where you're going to ride as well, because I know if you are going to ride where I live in the Lake District, so into the Dales, into Northumbria, into Cumbria, you're going to really struggle on you know, anything bigger than a 690. Some of the stuff, you know, you've got to be an extremely capable rider to get over. Some of it you just won't be able to do, because it's so rocky, you know, big 2 or 3 foot rock steps. Unless you're a dead good rider, it's not, you just can't do it. I'd imagine where you guys live, it's possibly not so rocky,
no, but we have
hilly.
Certainly no hills.
It's going to be all right.
In Cambridgeshire, everything it's just all clay. So it, you know, if you went anywhere near it with anything near a road bias tire or a heavy machine, you just sink, basically. Or if you're trying to go in a straight line, you can't. It's a nightmare.
It's funny, actually. I watched a video last week. Some guy has got a Honda CRF 250 or 300L, and he rode the TET, and obviously he's relatively inexperienced, and he really, really struggled, even just on a 250. They were absolutely fed up with rocks and mud because they just kept falling off. And if you're on a bigger bike, you've got to pick the damn thing up as well. It gets pretty exhausting after a while.
Yeah, where we are, it's quite sandy. And so that was one of my first experiences as well, is that I'd always ridden on the road pretty much. And then suddenly I was in this completely new environment on a bike that I wasn't particularly familiar with, in a riding position I wasn't familiar with. And you have to learn really, really quickly how to kind of ride that stuff. But it was just so much fun to do it. And also because of the option I had taken, which is to buy a bit of a nail of a bike, it meant that I kind of thought to myself, if I drop it, I'm not that fussed about the bike. I'm more fussed about myself. But it was like that freedom of being able to kind of go, I'm just going to give this a go, and not really having any worries about it. But I soon knew, as soon as we set off, that even though the bike was relatively cheap, it had far more than I had. Like, it was way more capable than I was.
This is the WR250, isn't it? The Yamaha.
Yeah. So I guess the story about that is that it was pre-COVID, so you could pick things up relatively cheaply. And in my infinite wisdom, I found something that kind of matched what I was looking for, and matched my price, and just bought it sight unseen off the internet without ever seeing it, and got it delivered in a van while I was at work, and came home to find my daughter sat on it, thinking that it was the coolest thing like that she'd ever seen in her life. But before that, I was thinking about, like, what do I buy? And I guess that maybe one of the questions that I had, which I emailed you about, Clive, initially, was there were so many bikes on the market at the time. Motocross bikes, enduro bikes, some that were slightly in the middle. And, you know, one of my first questions was, like, I could afford a non-V5 KTM 250 or whatever, which looks pretty awesome, which I'm sure I could slap a couple of lights on and road register. Is that what people do? Is that the best way to do it? Or do you spend a bit more money and buy something with a V5? And I guess, like, I struggled with that question quite a lot, because I could get far more for my money if I bought something that might have been whipped around a motocross track, which I thought I could potentially make into something. But I went for the WR250. It seemed to tick all the boxes from a kind of a new rider position. It was an 05 bike. Even though it came with clocks and stuff, someone had decided to pull them off. because they seemed to know better than what Yamaha engineers thought was a good solution. And it had I think they call it a vapor digital thing, which was, I mean, it worked. And well, it worked after I took the entire wiring loom to pieces and re-put everything back together. I still had issues with it. And one of the reasons I changed it was I spent as much time or more time fixing it after I rode it than I did riding it. But it was great. And the WR was such a fantastic entry-level bike. It was relatively cheap to buy. I changed the oil and filters and all those kinds of things. But other than that, the maintenance was relatively simple. It could really have done with a new rear shock and the front forks sorting out. But it, as I said, it had far more than I had to give it. And it was a great entry-level bike. So I really enjoyed it.
I think it's a good point. The point you make about coming from the road, you kind of have to learn how to ride again, don't you, really, once you go off-road? Certainly in sand, you never turn the handlebars, for example. You just lean on the pegs and that's how you turn. And, you know, easier said than done. You still have to kind of learn how much you lean and things like that. But riding off-road is completely different to riding on the road. So you are absolutely starting again. I don't think we're saying anything new here. I just really want to encourage anybody that's thinking of getting into trail riding, any kind of dirt bike riding, is go small. So in my barn, I've currently got a big KTM adventure bike, which I vowed I would never take off-road. I was going to leave it on road tyres, and it's just going to be a road bike. You know, within 3 months, it's got knobbly tyres on it, it's got crash bars on it, it's got a belly pan on it, and it's going off-road. But it's not great off-road. It's too big, it's too heavy. It's an awesome bike, but if I'm actually going anywhere, any distance off-road, then I go onto my 400 EXC KTM, which, if you saw the last film, is proving problematic. So I'm spending a fortune getting that sorted out, lots of time getting that sorted. But I am gonna next year, when I can get one, I'm going to get a CRF 300L. I also think that's something to do with my age as well, because I'm not that far off 60 these days. So I love my KTM 400 because just it's exciting, it's fast, it's powerful, and it does everything. When I first bought it, I was doing rallies, I was doing hare and hands and enduros and trail riding. So it just did everything, and it did it really well. But now I'm kind of, getting on a bit. I don't need all that power, and I'm kind of thinking it might be the last bike I ever buy, and I want something that's going to be reliable. No, you're right, it won't be. But that's what I'll tell the current Mrs. Barber. That's the way I'm going to go, and I just want to say to everybody else, look, try and ride something. Try and go on a big bike off-road and see how blooming difficult it is, and then try a smaller bike and see how much more fun you have.
I think that was like one of the issues that I had wanting to get into trail riding, is that as much as you could kind of like go to a dealership for a road bike and say, can I take, even to an extent, can I take this V4 Panigale out for a quick spin around the block? They would say, oh, yeah, okay. It's quite difficult to understand like how you'll get on with a green lane bike. And I think that I was really fortunate that I was surrounded by really good people who kind of like helped me through certain bits as well. But I remember getting on and like a couple of 100 meters in and going over. So I ride the Thetford Loop, which is quite a well-known trail in the Norfolk area. But really, when compared to a lot of other things, it's certain parts of it are kind of like an enduro stage. It's pretty short, condensed, and there's some pretty gnarly terrain on it. Well, for me, it is. And I just remember kind of like going, I don't know if I can hold on to this for like the duration of this ride. And I guess like if I had said to someone, hey, can I borrow your your £5,000 KTM to essentially put myself and your bike in danger? Like, I guess the problem is with these things is you kind of have to just take the bull by the horns and just commit. And that's kind of what I did when I bought my 250. But I guess that because I had the Tiger, I knew I wanted something almost the polar opposite, on the assumption that I was going to drop it and I would need to pick it up. And it gets to another point actually, which is buying the bike. There was me and there was the bike. And it was my thing to get away on the weekend or, for a couple of hours, but I didn't have a support vehicle. So I knew that if it did break down, I was going to be pushing it home. And I also needed something light enough that if I did get myself into trouble, I could essentially like take it to wherever it needed to get kind of on my own. And that was another thing. And we were actually talking over email kind of before when I first turned up to my first kind of ride, and lots of vans turned up, and I had ridden, and it was the furthest I had ridden my WR, and I was quite proud of myself. And all these vans turned up, and then cars with trailers, and they all kind of wheeled out these immaculate, very shiny bikes, and I thought, oh no, like everyone's got brand new bikes. They had brand new, like branded kit, all in the same color, and I had this hodgepodge of eBay specials that I had kind of bought, thinking if I don't enjoy it, I haven't lost that much money, and I can just turn everything and walk away, and kind of it's okay. But yeah, it was certainly another thing that influenced my buying decisions when it came to buying my bike, which was it kind of needed to be something that I could kind of move myself without having a support system.
It's the thing, like it's a big old investment, right? If you're gonna say, I want to try out a new bike, Clive's told you, don't get that bike that's good for the road, that prestige mobile, the thing that you actually want. Get the small bike because you're gonna have more fun. Like, says you, I don't know you, but there's definitely a matrix of like, it's sort of a prestige to fun to peril trade-off. And the bigger bikes are great, love them. You can do gravel roads and all the rest of that stuff. But I mean, gravel roads really are just uncomfortable tarmac roads. There's nothing different to them there. You could go down them in whatever. But if you could if you could just borrow someone's bike, borrow someone's 450 and go out for a day, you'll have so much fun. And yeah, you sort of drop the prestige value, but the peril value goes down because you're having a 9 out of 10 in fun at 20 miles an hour, and the peril factor goes down, obviously. But it's just, I don't know where you can get those experience days, really, unless you drive yourself to Wales and go on one of the £500 a day courses. Maybe I've missed it.
Yeah, you kind of need to know people, don't you, really?
But that's true of a lot of TRF members. So if you did go along to the meeting and just say, look, I'm really interested, I don't have a bike, can someone hook me up?
I'm sure someone.
I've got an old 250 you can have a go on. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's probably what I bought. I bought someone's old 250 that was kind of like sat around not really doing anything. But that, Will's absolutely right. Like the amount of people who will give you the time of day, who will go, oh yeah, let me tell you about this. And I think that's another thing about trail riding, is everyone's so passionate about it and everyone's so willing to share. Oh, I did this amazing route. Here's the map for it. Like, here's how you can find it. Or this trail's been closed because we need to repair it or something like that. Everyone shares that information. There didn't seem to be a lot of barriers to adoption in my experience, which was really nice. Though there was a point in my first TRF meeting where you kind of introduce yourself and you say who you are, where you're from, and what bike you ride. And everyone kind of like doesn't really react when you say your name or where you're from. But as soon as you say what bike you ride, you kind of, if you get like a nod, then people kind of get it, which is quite cool. And in my experience, when I said, oh, I've got an old WR250, afterwards someone came over and said, oh, I've got one of those, or I started on one of those. How are you finding it? And I think that was really, really nice. So it's definitely, for me, I knew it was something that I'd really like to do, and I just kind of like committed to an extent. I'd done a lot of kind of research, including kind of reaching out to Clive and Noel and doing a lot of research online and finding what I thought would probably be the good in the middle type thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, the brand new KTMs are awfully attractive. They look lovely. The new Husqvarnas, the gases, all that kind of stuff. But I thought, yeah, go for something that kind of in the middle that I don't necessarily mind falling off. And it seemed to work out for me. I certainly got the bug and I was hooked, but it was a baptism of fire, my first ride, definitely.
Do you know what? I remember my first ride. Again, I did actually buy that brand new KTM, like 16 years ago, brand new to me. And I remember the first time I went out on my own because I didn't know anybody. And we'll come on to this and we'll come on to the TRF in a little bit as well. But I remember going out and doing some of the big mountain passes in the lakes. And that's just this one downhill bit. And it was like a 4-foot drop off. And I didn't know it was there. I pretty much fell down it, but managed to stay on the bike. And I just got to the bottom of this and thought, what have I done? I've just spent all this money. I'm never doing this again. It's terrifying. But, thankfully, it's an interesting point, actually, you make about, I wanted to talk about the TRF as well, and also meeting other trail riders, because a lot of people that do get in touch with us ride on their own. And that just seems really sad, because most of the fun that I have is the crack, when you stop for a chat, or you go to a cafe or whatever. And so that's another thing I think we should try and address as well in this. So the other thing, Will, is I listened back to our last podcast we did when you were on your 790, and we were talking about which bike of the 6 do you wish, if you weren't allowed your own, which one would you be on, or which other bike might you buy? And you actually said then, I don't know, I might think about a 690, and now you've got one.
Yeah. Well, I exploded. I think on that thing, I think I might have exploded my rear shock. So the 790 just, it is probably the most capable twin for trail riding and doing that sort of long distance stuff. But you are buying one purely because, mate, it's probably partly prestige and creature comforts, but it's because you don't want to sacrifice that road comfort. But the 690 is not that much more uncomfortable on the road. You drop 5 miles an hour, so you turn up 5 minutes later. Who cares? But when you get there, I'm having so much more fun on that bike, doing all the stuff that I would never even dream of on the bigger bike. I love that thing.
I love that thing as well. I mean, as I said, I've ridden them in Morocco, and you've got a big open piece there. So I just remember going about 110 miles an hour across this desolate beach, completely flat beach, very, very briefly. I soon realised I was terrified, so I slowed down. But yeah, they are superb.
But the new ones now, they've counterbalanced the single cylinder stuff. So when you're going at 65 mile an hour, it is smooth as butter. It's just like riding a twin. It's got a quick shift, so you bang up through all the gears. It's got ABS, it's got traction control, it's got 2 different throttle mounts. The thing is amazing.
So I'm not going to ask you what your perfect bike is, because you've got it right, Alex. And you've upgraded as well, haven't you, since the WR? You're on something else now.
Yeah. So the WR was fantastic, but as I said, it was the perfect entry into trail riding for me. It was a great bike, but it was starting to get a little bit long in the tooth, and I was looking at rebuilding the rear shock and rebuilding the forks and all that kind of stuff. And then COVID happened, and all the places got shut down, or there were, no one was operating. So I couldn't get any of that stuff done. I'd done as much as I could. And I was looking around, and suddenly the prices of secondhand bikes were just going through the roof. And to be honest, they still are to an extent, or it's in my location, they are anyway. So we couldn't do any riding. So I thought, well, I can order something, and it can sit on the backlog for a couple of months, and it won't be any kind of skin off my nose. So I looked around, and one of my friends actually who contacted me after I got my WR, because I think I put some silly post on Facebook saying, like, look at the new toy, like, I'm so excited to fall off this. He kind of reached out and said, oh, I've actually got a Husqvarna 250 2-stroke in my garage that I bought, but I've never really ridden that much, because going back to what you said, like, I don't want to ride on my own very much, though I do really enjoy riding it. I had 2-strokes when I was a teenager. I had a Cagiva when I was 17, which was an absolute weapon that was all power valved up, and it was great. So I looked at 2-strokes, but I knew that I was no Billy Bolt. I wasn't an enduro champion, and they were all riding kind of 300 KTM TPIs, and they were quite expensive, and I knew that I was a million miles away from the full potential that a bike like that could offer, but I still wanted a 2-stroke, but I also wanted something that I knew was mine. I guess it goes back to what we were saying about the prestige and having something that belongs to, that's always been yours, and what the maintenance has been done on it and stuff like that. So I looked at another 2-stroke and found the Beta Cross Trainer, which for me was another kind of ideal bike. It's lower, it doesn't have loads of top end, but I don't think I've ever taken my trail bike over about 40 miles an hour on the trails that I ride anyway. It's torquey, and they had great reviews. Like, I did lots of online research and stuff like that, and I love it. Absolutely love it. It is super smooth. It starts on the button. It doesn't involve me to do any kind of crazy maintenance that I thought if anything goes catastrophically wrong with it, just change the piston, and it's kind of no big deal. Whilst my WR, I was thinking about getting the engine rebuilt, and they were going like, this is going to be quite a big job. But with a 2-stroke, it just seemed like the maintenance was a lot easier. The suspension is brand new, so there are parts of my kind of like the route that we ride that I always on the WR were like, I need to focus, I need to get through it. On the Beta, you just like dance over it, and I was like, oh, that was not a big deal. Like, what happened? I put that no part down to myself. I put it all down to the bike. And when you roll off the throttle on the 2-stroke, you don't get kind of like the engine braking, and the ability to kind of flow through some more of the open sections for me just suits my riding style a lot better. It's super light. It makes all the 2-stroke noises. It makes all the 2-stroke smells. I'm a very happy boy, and I keep up with everyone. So anyone who thinks kind of like, again, it kind of goes back to, I need the biggest, baddest 450 EXC with all the bells and whistles and I can't remember what the top spec one, the Erzberg kit or whatever. I can keep up with most people or anyone of kind of a similar ability to me. Bike's great. So I would say absolutely perfect bike for me would be the Beta, especially as I don't really have any road sections really that I have to contend with. So I love it.
Good. Well, I'm just looking at my notes I made for this podcast, and the which bike question, my notes say large versus small, but the best bike is the one in the garage, and it depends where you ride. And then the final note is just get a small one, for fuck's sake. So there we go. I could have saved a lot of breath. Just get a fucking small one.
Also, get 690, so then you don't need a trailer or a van. One bike.
See, this is the thing I was going to ask you, Will. Like, do you find it quite heavy or not?
No.
No?
Because I've done my journey in reverse. So I had a GS Adventure.
Oh, of course, yeah.
790. Now 690.
So I've got a van, and I had a trailer for a while. Well, I had a trailer and then I got a van. But I only live in where, I do all my trail riding from the doorstep, really. The nearest trail is about 4 miles. No, it's not even 4 miles from my house. It's about 2 miles from my house. So I've never really needed one to go trail riding. If I meet pals, I meet them in Kendal, which is 9 miles away. So
yeah, but we're going to Spain next year. You have to
we're gonna ride there, aren't we?
Yeah, you've got to get to Portsmouth.
I think, yeah, that would be an issue for me, definitely, because obviously, like my bike is very much it's kind of like a motocross bike, really, with lights and things like that. I mean, the engine in it is pretty much the similar to the RR and that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't take mine. I mean, I ride it a couple of miles to the trail, but I would be in trouble if I had to ride anywhere. And also, like, I'm a little bit. You have to. I mean, I tend to ride mine quite carefully on the road because I'm on knobblies, and also like the whole point is trail riding. I want to get to the trails, and another reason why I don't use my road bike very much is because having a young family, the roads have become quite dangerous, and having a family now, the consequences are more. So I just like get to the trail because I know that if I have a whoopsie on a trail, I'm probably doing about. It feels to me like I'm doing 60 miles an hour, but really I'm probably doing about 16 miles an hour. And it's just as exhilarating. But for me, it feels like a safer way to spend my biking hours. But yeah, there was no way that I would do any kind of road mileage on mine. I would have to go and buy a 690. In fact, that's a good point. If I'll have to go and buy a 690 because Will and Clive says that I have to for road riding. I'm hoping my wife can hear me.
That's the other point. Yeah, why just have one bike? I don't know, Will, don't go there. You've got your one bike policy, but you can have as many as you want. There's a different bike for every single purpose. Speedway, grass track.
Bicycles, I have a very different policy. I've got about 6 bicycles.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Spain. I'm probably going to take my 1050 because I'm not going to be able to get the Honda in time, and I don't trust my 16-year-old KTM not to die. So
tell them both get 690.
Don't need one. I've got a 1050.
Or actually, this is the thing that I've thought about. Is when someone was telling me, get yourself a 450 or a 500 or whatnot. Like, well, yeah, but when I want to go to Wales or I want to go to Spain or whatever, we'll just rent a van. It costs £100 to rent a van for a weekend.
Yeah. Or you can borrow mine.
Oh, thanks. I might just rent a van to come and borrow it.
What do you need to add to it to make it trail safe?
To the bike or to you?
Well, we'll start off with the bike, and then we'll move on to
Just
you.
get tyres.
What gear you're going to
Put
get?
tyres on anything, you ride it. Tyres on Hayabusa
Tyres.
and ride it.
Listen, tyres. The whole tyre argument. There should be no discussion about what sort of tyres you get. Just get the knobbliest motherfuckers you can get.
No, it's no point.
50-50 tyres on trails, pointless, absolutely pointless. Unless you're going on gravel tracks
Even then,
only,
it's this.
then they'll be fine.
I just
But
don't
so
see
would
the point.
road
Basically,
tyres.
there's knobblies are okay on road. You just readjust after a week, don't you? But taking a road tyre down a trail is your fun to peril goes off balance. You want fun up here, peril down here, but you've moved it backwards.
I've got really bored of those discussions. Oh, would you get the Michelins or the Dunlops, or should we get the Motos? Just get whatever your guys got and get them to put them on. There's the other thing about thick inner tubes, hopefully more puncture resistant. I've always used Mooses on my trail bike because I know they're not cheap, but they last about 4,000 miles before they go off. It's not like I'm a Dakar rider. And that's a lot of time for me. So I recommend Mooses if you can afford them. If not, get thicker inner tubes in there, and always carry a spare 21-inch tube. We can go in the front or can go in the back. Yeah. Just get knobblies.
Yeah, agreed. I actually, when I bought my Beta, I bought it new, and I got them to throw in the set of Mooses because I twisted their arm. I don't know why they managed to do it, but they did. Yeah, and it goes back to my kind of situation where I didn't have anyone to rescue me, and the idea of kind of like spannering on the side of the trail when I only have a couple of hours. One of the reasons I bought my new bike was I wanted to, I find 3 hours on a Saturday or on a Sunday, and I can just get on it, press the button, I can go. And I think for me, what would be heartbreaking is if an hour in I get a puncture and then I spend an hour and a half, mangling my rim and trying to get a new inner tube in. So I just thought, you know what, if I was sat on the side of the trail and someone said, it will be £100 a tyre for you not to be sat on the side of the trail and you could be riding, would you pay it? And I'd say, absolutely, I'd pay you twice as much. So when I got the option of like £100 an end, I was just like, yeah, it was a no-brainer for me.
Some of my fondest memories, I sat on the side of the trail with someone else hammering a rim to try and get it to hold air and whatnot.
Yeah, but that's fun as long as it's not your rim. So I kind of thought
it was my rim.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
You've got better friends. You've got better friends than I have, Will.
Well, I was laughing at him. We were doing we were both on GSs and we were doing a loop round Surrey, and we got to the end and he had a flat tire and I was laughing at him and he repaired it. And we went to set off and we realised that I also had a flat tire, but also my rim was in a funny shape. But it's a longer story, but it was good. It was a fun day out.
So that's tyres sorted. Upgrades. So for me, there's kind of three things that you should absolutely have on your trail bike. And I don't know why they're not, well, I know why they're not factory fitted because they want you to go and spend more money, of course. But you need a belly pan, you need handguards, and I would recommend the wraparound kind of aluminium ones because they stop your levers from getting broken. And also some kind of radiator protection, whether that's sort of engine bars or something to stop your radiator from getting squashed and punctured. Other than that, everything else is a bit of a farkle.
I haven't got rad guards on my 690. Should I get rad guards?
I think you probably should, because you're going to drop it, and if it lands on a rock and your radiator goes like that, and then stuff starts puking out.
Do you know what? I've left it box standard. So the kind of the trails that we've got, we don't have a lot of rocks. So I never had an issue with the sump guard. I did buy an aftermarket one. And I had such a faff fitting it, I took it off and I just sold it because the part that was on it, it's plastic, it's not ideal, but the amount of riding I've done, it's never taken a bash. Now, I'll regret that when I do smack it into something. So I probably do need to sort something out. But no, I haven't got a belly pan other than the standard one because for the kind of riding I do, it kind of works. But you're right, I probably need to sort something out. Handguards absolutely essential. I don't know why like new bikes don't come with them to an extent, especially like alley ones. Though for some reason the Beta's got some really funny tapered bars. So I went through about 6. I kept buying them and none of them fit properly. And there's obviously they've got a couple of bits like for the controls and things like that. So I could never find them that actually fit properly. There's some amazing ones that bolt onto like the clamp of the bars, but they were like only in America and cost like £300. So I couldn't really stretch to that. So I've got some plastic ones that seem to do the job, and they're all right. The only thing I would say that's not on your list, Clive, that I find a bit of essential is I have a little mirror that slings underneath my right handlebar, so I can kind of see who's behind me, and especially on the road sections, it means that you can kind of see if there's any cars coming. So that would be a definite recommendation from me. They're really cheap. You can get them for like £5 off eBay or whatever, but I think that's a really good addition.
Yes, I have a mirror on both my KTMs as well, the ones that fold in. What are they called? Adventure Spec sell them. I don't remember the ones that just sort of flop in and they're on the little, the double take mirrors. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
I do need to put some rad guards on. I haven't done so far, but I think you see horror stories of people taking a clattering and squishing radiators. And I didn't realize how expensive radiators were until my WR. I realized the rads that I had on the WR were really smushed. I can't believe they actually held water, but they did. I ended up being able to find some aftermarket ones. They're actually quite good, but the problem you have with them is they bolt onto the bike, but then the plastics didn't fit particularly well, and the little louvers that go on the front that deflect the mud didn't fit very well, and you just get into a bit of a world of pain when you get into like the aftermarket, or I certainly did with the WR. Maybe it was because it was an older bike, but I think protecting the standard stuff that comes on the bike is probably a pretty essential thing.
We've got that completely covered. Well, you guys obviously haven't, but you should do. Don't come up to the lakes without all that stuff on. So that's protection for the bike, protection for the rider now. So obviously helmet, we have to wear a helmet anyway. We could talk for hours about different helmets. I'm not so precious about my helmet. I like a full face one. I like a flip-top helmet because I wear glasses and I'm old and I don't care how ridiculous I look anymore. But they are very convenient for fueling and chatting and taking photos and all that kind of good stuff.
Just on that, Clive, do you go goggles or visor? Even if you don't have a flip front. So I bought an adventure helmet with a visor on it because I too wear glasses when I ride, and I thought, I'll get goggles for it because like that's what trail riders do. And then I realized I put my glasses on, and then I tried to put my goggles on, and after about 2 minutes I realized that I probably couldn't ride for more than another 2 minutes having the glasses digging into my face. So I very quickly kind of reverted back. But I think that's another thing. It's like, do you go goggles? Do you go like an adventure helmet that's got a visor? I wear one with a visor because I just find it a lot easier.
I can't ride with a visor. Not when it's all right until the going gets even slightly tough. I don't know if I fog it up or what, but I need something. I did Wales in sunglasses. Generally, it's either sunglasses or goggles for me, but I can't have the visor down. I don't know what it is about it.
See, I because I wear glasses, I have to go with the visor. I tried goggles earlier on, and just the amount of steaming up that happens just made them. And I even bought some of those goggles that had a little electric fan at the top.
No,
made no difference whatsoever. Spent a fortune on them. Got them from America. Didn't work. So I ride with the visor. I leave a thumb gap, so you always get some air coming through, and that with the inner visor thing. What are those things called? I should have made some notes.
Oh, the pin lock.
Yeah, with the pin lock. Yeah, it works really well for me. And it's the K-Berg Adventure helmet, and you can get them for about 150, 160 quid. They're 5-star sharp rated, and that'll do for me.
I can't do it. Can't ride with the visor down.
It's funny, isn't it?
It's weird. I have to glasses or goggles for me.
I think I remember, Will, because I was watching some of the movies, and I think you had a lid with the visor up and your goggles on, and I thought, that's an interesting decision. I wondered what kind of motivated that, because I'm with you. Like, I much prefer wearing goggles because it means you don't steam up quite so much. But the issue I had is that I want to wear my glasses when I'm riding.
I think it is the vision. It's that you can't see and you can't breathe with the visor down, or I can't. But with goggles on, you can see and breathe, and you can put your visor down over your goggles. which is just, chicken dinner.
You don't wear glasses under your goggles, obviously. You're wearing glasses now, but you don't wear them when you're riding.
No, yeah, I just wear them for screens.
So boots is another one. I've always swore by. I'm one of these kind of all the gear all the time kind of people. And if Noel was here, sadly Noel can't make it because he's completely and utterly technically incompetent.
You made it sound like, because safety gear is very important. Sadly, Noel can't be with us tonight.
The whole world has been operating on blooming Zoom calls and he can't get it to work.
He's died in a Crocs-related accident. R.I.P. Noel, we miss you.
Yeah, we miss you very much, you fool. So he's completely the opposite. His view is, just ride sensibly, ride slowly, and you won't hurt yourself.
But that requires, whatever he's got, 30 years of practice and skill.
Yeah. So yes, exactly. And when I first started trail riding, I was falling off 10 times a day at least. So I still wear full body armor. I still wear knee pads. I've actually got changed from enduro boots or motocross boots to city adventure boots because they've got, I think, enough protection in them. You've only got to get one rock hit your shin to realise how blooming painful it is, and it's worth having decent protection on your feet. I'm obsessed with gloves. I've got a big drawer. I'll send you a picture, Alex, that is my glove drawer. It's this 2 foot, 3 foot wide drawer, and it is just full of different gloves. I'm obsessed with gloves. So whenever I go out, I've got at least 3 pairs of gloves with me. You probably need 2. You probably need sort of motocross style gloves because they're the best off-road. You've got proper feel and control. And then you need some waterproof ones, and then you need some waterproof motocross ones. And then you need some for ones when you're on the road, gauntlets on.
Nah, you just get two pairs of good motocross gloves and swap them when one gets wet.
Yeah, you're probably right. Where's the fun in that? So I don't know what protection do you guys wear?
Well, I'm like you. I do full protection. So I've got Alpine style boots. I mean, the brand doesn't really matter, does it? But they fit me like a glove. They're the most comfortable piece of footwear I own. If I could wear them in bed, I would. But they come right up there, the Tech 7 ones.
Yeah.
And then I will wear knee braces because everyone I speak to who does, I've got another chat group and they all do rallies and proper motorcycling stuff. They said, well, yeah, you could not wear braces, but then when you do knee it, you'll have to wear a brace anyway because you'll walk with a limp for the rest of your life. So just wear them now. Why don't you? And they are comfortable. I did the whole secret cabin trip in knee braces. That was fine. The only problem was when you need to drop trousers to go to the loo. It's a bit of a pest. And then full body out of foot, close to the skin body armor that doesn't move around it's not in my jacket because that will shift about. That's on my skin.
Yeah, so I've got, I think, is it force field stuff? It's that 3DO that sort of is soft and molds your body, but goes hard.
Yeah, it's hard when you first put it on. As soon as you warm up, it molds around, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great stuff. That is kind of, wear that as with a inner layer, and then you have a jacket over, and then potentially. Well, I mean, we're lucky, haven't we? We've got all that adventure spec kit.
Yeah.
So it's
the D3O stuff is in everything. It's in climb stuff. Forcefield might have their own proprietary thing now. Knox do some really nice stuff, a similar thing, and then some of their stuff is abrasion resistant as well, so you can slide down the road with it. But I think, armor next to skin, not in the jacket, is better. That would be my opinion anyway. Yeah. For when you fall off on the road, mostly.
Yeah, I'm not so fussed about enduro kit anymore. Motocross kit, I never ride in that. It's I know a lot of people do, but I think I kind of agree with Noel on that, really, that anything that makes you look like you're riding a race bike, try and look as innocuous as possible. That would be my favour. But again, as long as you've got the armour on, I don't think it matters what you wear. I think having waterproof stuff with you is certainly in British weather is pretty essential. If you're cold and wet, it's not a lot of fun, is it, really?
Well, yeah, and you've got to have that abrasion, though, haven't you?
You've got to have the abrasion thing, yeah. So if you can get something if you can afford to buy something that is abrasion resistant, then all well and good.
So yeah, my approach is, I think it's pretty much for all biking, whether it's on road or off road, is I wear all gear all the time. I tend to go for the best brand that I can afford, because the brand, I don't mean brand because it's all about the label. I mean, it's about like the technology and it being as good a quality as possible. But when I first started riding, everything was secondhand, but I tried to get the best secondhand I could get. So I had a set of Garnet SG12 boots, motocross boots. They were really, really good boots when they were brand new. I think the person had worn them a handful of times. And so for me, they were cheap and they offered a ton of protection. It was like wearing nothing I've ever worn before. I mean, these things were as stiff as they come. And I initially thought, how on earth am I going to ride in these things? I can't feel the shifter. I can't feel the brake. I had no idea how I was going to do it. But after a while, like, they come to you. One of the other questions I think I reached out to you, Clive, was with green laning means riding to the trails, or in my case, riding to the trails and then trail riding. But the difference, the delta between off-road kit and on-road kit seems massive to me. You've got, like, I think you said about like Heingerich jackets and trousers and stuff that have multiple layers, a waterproof layer, a textiles layer, an armor layer. And I just thought, like, standing up and riding around, I'm just going to like perspire. Like, I'm just going to get so hot. And it's going to be heavy, and I don't want that. But at the same time, I was looking at motocross kit, going, it's got no armor. And I was watching people riding, and I couldn't see them wearing armor. And I'm going, if you come off on the road, even if you're doing 30 miles an hour, you're going to be toast. So after doing a little bit more research, I went for, I had my Garnets, I had a secondhand pair of Shift motocross trousers, and I found some really good Knox soft DO3 knee protection, which was really, really comfortable to wear. I've still got them. They're brilliant. I don't wear braces yet, just because I've never needed them personally, and I haven't. Yeah, they're very expensive. So maybe if I like injured one knee, I could afford maybe to buy one. No, it was.
This is the trap. This is what my friend said. You know, I got mine off country, I think, secondhand, but you'll do it, and everyone does that injury going around in a car park or something.
So I got my knees, they were fine. I don't wear any hip protection, but I think you can buy like padded shorts and things, though. It's never something I've done. And I managed to pick up a O'Neill, I think, undershirt that's got DO3 in the shoulders, elbows, a little bit in the chest and a little bit in the back. And then I just put a motocross jersey over the top. But again, I find it's one of those things when I leave the house and it's maybe early in the morning and it's a bit chilly, I just kind of have to tell myself just to get on with it. And you're going to be cold, but as soon as you hit the trail, like for me anyway, I get hot. And so when I see people turn up, which kind of happened at the last ride, people turned up with their brand new bikes, they rolled them out and they put on like full RST adventure gear that I would wear on a KTM 1050 or something like that. And I just thought, how are you going to get through without just like keeling over and get so hot? So yeah, that's what I went for. And gloves, I think I've got a couple of motocross gloves, but again, I was quite apprehensive first riding, going, if I have a whoopsie on the road, I'm going to lose a finger, because I've always been really funny about my hands, and I've always bought, like, my gloves are almost the most expensive thing I've bought, because I think, like, if I lose a finger, I'm going to be in real trouble. And I think one of the British Superbike riders injured a finger, and it took like years for it to heal, because like you use your hands all the time. So I was a bit apprehensive about that, but I soon kind of get over it. And I think it goes back to having wraparound handguards and things like that. So yeah, my opinion is always buy the best stuff you can afford. But if it means you've got to buy secondhand, go for it. Now I've got a set of Alpine Stars Tech 7s, I think, as well, Will. And the reason I bought them was because I was told they were the most comfortable motocross boots you can buy. And they were right. I stuck my feet in them and I rode, and I never had any issues. Whilst with my Garnets, I put them on and I couldn't feel anything for 2 or 3 rides. And I didn't really want to go back to that feeling. So
I think your point about the getting hot when you trail, that's the crucial one, because you do work up a sweat. It can be absolutely freezing cold if you go out in the winter and you're still sweating like a pig, because you're actually getting a full body workout riding trails. So that's a really good point. So listen guys, we've been recording for an hour now, and all of the different topics we had to discuss, we've actually addressed, I think, 3 of them. So I suggest what we're going to do is we're going to make this into a 2, possibly even a 3-parter if you're up for joining again, the pair of you. And maybe we can help Noel with the technology and get him to talk about why you should just wear a plant pot on your head and make some clothes out of tin foil or something like that. So what I'd like to cover in the next episode, is I really want to talk about the TRF, because I think they get a really bad press, possibly justifiably from 10, 15, 20 years ago, but the modern TRF is a different beast, and I think they have done some fantastic things recently, not the least of which is the Green Road map that is available to all members, and I think we should need to talk about that. The TET is another thing. I think the TET is the biggest and the greatest thing to happen to trail riding in the last 20 years by a friend of the pod, John Ross. It's a remarkable thing. I wanted to talk about, we touched on that earlier, tools and other things that you need to bring with you. Riding technology, something about riding on your own. Is that a wise thing? What should you do if you are riding on your own? And something Alex mentioned actually is how you deal with people that you don't ride on the footpaths, do you? So I think it's always good to have something for when you come across those people. And again, the TRF are doing a fantastic job of lane preservation, and many of us do get involved with maintaining the lanes, with raising money, working with the local authorities to do that. I think that'd be a good thing to address as well. And also, it'd be great as well to talk then about multi-day planning and a sort of longer term adventures, things like camping kit and stuff like that. And I think finally, what I would really like to talk about is kind of the code of conduct that the TET has and that the TRF has as well, because we should not be using the lanes as racetracks. There could be kids or horses or whatever around the next bend. So riding responsibly and behaving responsibly is really important as well. So I suggest I'll stop recording now, and part 2, possibly even a part 3. You up for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking when you were talking about the TET, can you get it to come our way? Because you look at the TET
nothing
map,
comes our way.
It's like they've even done like where I used to live, like they've done the Great Western Way or something, like which is all down south. And I'm like, well, I don't live in Somerset anymore. Like that, it just seems to like veer off from East Anglia. Like, oh no, we don't want to go there. But we've got some great stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, like the sand in some places is just horrendous.
Have you really though? Have you really, boys?
No, it's nothing like Cumbria.
No, it's not.
I'm going to click on the stop recording now. Well, there we go. Back to the podcast grindstone. Listen, I just wanted to say thanks to Alex and Will, but also thanks to Danny, Soren, Alan, James, and the rest of the shoot and ride guys. We need a proper name. But yeah, it's this podcast takes up an awful lot of time, and when you've got a family and a job, time's pretty precious, as pretty much everybody knows. So I've needed a bit of a kick up the butt to get going again, but hopefully this is the start of something a little bit more permanent, to try and get one done every month. I say that now, who knows what's going to happen, but yeah, thanks again for every comment and share and all that kind of stuff. We really appreciate that. Please carry on doing it, and please give us some feedback. At least we know people are listening then. The other thing is, if you've got something that you think would be good to share on the podcast, please get in touch. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Drop us a line and we would love to have you on the podcast. The more the merrier. I kind of like the idea of kind of democratization of information. That's kind of what the internet should all be about, really. So if you've got something that you'd like to share, great, let's share it. This is all about getting out there and riding and doing fun stuff that we can share with other people. Maybe encourage somebody else's journey, or get them to go and do exactly the same thing that you've done that you've really enjoyed. So please give us a shout, and let's do a podcast about it. So that's part 1. We're certainly going to have a part 2 and maybe even a part 3. I think we probably need to keep these podcasts to less than an hour, which is, I guess, an average commute. Maybe not these days. Everybody's just staying at home, right? All right. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.